I guess I'm what you would call a bit of a nerd. At least that's what the kids at school told me. I am Neil, so my nickname, of course, was Nerdy Neil. It was because I was curious about everything. I just wanted to learn, so I asked my teachers lots of questions. My life wasn't that great, to be honest, but all that was about to change. I was about to become super rich. But before I go on, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any more shocking stories. The day my life changed started off pretty normal. I walked to school by myself and hung around the playground waiting for the bell to go. I was just about to go to the math classroom when I saw her. She was absolutely stunning. My heart was beating madly and my stomach had butterflies. Who was she? As we shuffled into the classroom, the teacher turned to us and said, "This is Laura. She's new, so make sure you all let her feel welcome. Why don't you sit next to Neil?" I smiled shyly at Laura as she came and sat next to me. She didn't really look at me. Why would she? I knew she was out of my league. The class began, and as usual, I spent half the time with my hand in the air, ready to ask another question. At break time, I went and sat down in the corner on my own, as I always did. "Hi," I heard a voice say. I looked up and was surprised to see Laura standing in front of me. "Can I sit with you, please?" she asked. "Yes, of course," I stammered. She sat down, smiling. We got on so well. I couldn't believe we were talking like we had known each other for years. "You're so curious, aren't you?" she said. "I really like that." Finally, I had met someone who liked me just the way I was. I couldn't let this opportunity slip away. I took a deep breath and said, "Do you want to go on a date?" I felt sure she was going to say no. I waited, holding my breath. "I would love to," she said. We decided we would go for a walk in the park after school. The sun was shining and I felt like I was in heaven as we strolled along. Laura told me how she and her younger sister Beth had just moved to our town with their parents. She laughed at everything I said and she made me feel really special. It started to get dark and I knew we should head home. I really didn't want our date to end. "Do you want to go out for a burger on Saturday?" I blurted out. "I would," said Laura, "but I have 2 friends coming into town on Saturday. Maybe we could have a double date." "Oh, yes, that would be great," I said happily. When Saturday afternoon came, I was so excited. I picked out something nice to wear and set off to meet Laura at our local diner. When I got there, she was already sitting there with her friends. A boy a couple of years older than me and a pretty girl with blonde hair. "Hi, Neil. This is Mike and Julie," said Laura, introducing us. I smiled and sat down next to Laura. I felt a bit left out as they sat there chatting up on old times. Of course, I couldn't join in the conversation, so I just sat there quietly. "Come on, Julie, let's leave these boys to it," said Laura. "We just need to go to the bathroom." "What they mean is they just need to go and talk about us," said Mike jokingly when the girls had left us. I smiled at him. I felt really awkward sitting there. What should we talk about? Mike looked like a football kind of guy, and I hated sports. Suddenly, Mike stood up and looked at me. "Shh," he said, holding up one finger to his lips. With that, he jumped up and shot behind the counter. I realized the cashier had just popped into the kitchen for something. I watched as I saw Mike open the cash till and pull out a bundle of notes. What was he doing? Was he crazy? He was going to get caught, and we would probably all go to prison. I was starting to panic as he came and sat back down beside me. He was grinning as though nothing was wrong. I didn't know what to do. Just then, the girls came back from the bathroom and joined us at the table. I looked at Laura chatting to her friend Julie. How could she be friends with people like this? I thought she was really nice. Then I realized she had absolutely no idea what kind of person Mike really was. A thief. We finished our meal and left the diner. As we walked outside, I felt sure the police would be waiting for us. But no one was there. Mike had got away with it. I didn't mention anything to Laura. I didn't want to upset her. Monday morning, I set off for school. I had thought about what had happened all weekend. I decided I wasn't going to mention it to Laura. I didn't really know Mike. Maybe it was the first time he had done anything like that. I smiled as I walked through the school gate and saw Laura standing there. "Hi, Neil. I've been waiting for you," she said, smiling. "Do you want to come to my house after school tonight?" "Yeah, sure," I said. "Cool. Meet you at the school gates," she called as she went off to class. Oh my gosh, this was it. She wanted to introduce me to her parents and sister Beth. Surely this could mean only one thing. She wanted to make us official. I was so happy. The day went by in a dreamy haze. I still managed to pay attention in class. I didn't want to miss out on anything there. At lunchtime, I could hardly eat a thing. All I could think about was going to meet Laura's parents. When the final bell rang, I threw my books in my bag and ran off to the school gate. Laura was there before me. "Sorry I'm late," I gasped as I ran up to her. "It's fine," she said, laughing. "I've only been here 2 minutes." We chatted all the way to Laura's house. I felt so nervous, which made me talk even more. When we got to Laura's house, I have to admit, I was a little surprised. She lived in one of the biggest, most expensive houses in our town. I hid my shock. I didn't want her to see. She may have thought I wasn't good enough for her. We went and sat in the lounge. I was expecting to see her parents there waiting, but maybe they were in the kitchen. "Would you like a cup of tea?" asked Laura. "Oh, yes, please," I replied. She was about to walk out of the room when she turned to me. "Oh, just one thing. Whatever you do, do not go into that room," she said, pointing at the door at the other side of the room. "I don't want you to see what's in there." That was strange. Why would she say that? What on earth could be in there? My curiosity got the better of me. I'll just have a quick look, I thought. Quietly, I tiptoed over and opened the door. I looked into the room. It was an ordinary room, just with some books on the wall and a table and chairs in the middle of the room. As I walked nearer to the desk, I saw on the top of it was a puzzle with sliding bolts on it. I pushed each bolt across until it locked into place. As the last one snapped in, a red button rose out of the table. Well, I had to press it, didn't I? As I pushed down the button, I heard a whirring and sliding noise. I turned around and the wall behind me had slid across, revealing a hidden room. I felt really nervous, but I just had to have a quick peek in to see what was inside. I couldn't believe my eyes. In the room was a huge pile of $100 bills. There must have been more than $1 million in there. Suddenly, I heard a noise. Laura was coming back. I ran back to the desk, pressed the red button, and the wall slid shut again. I just managed to sit back down on the sofa when Laura walked into the room. "Here's your tea," she said. "Do you want a biscuit?" I could hardly speak. All I could think about was all that money. "I'm okay, thanks," I said. "Where are your parents?" "Oh, they've gone away for a long weekend." "They won't be back until later tonight," Laura replied. I felt a bit disappointed, but I knew it wouldn't be too long before Laura would invite me to meet them. When I got home, I could hardly sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about all that money. If I had that much money, I would travel the world, starting with Disney World. I'd always wanted to go there. I would buy a fast car and a big house. I knew if I had lots of money, my life would be amazing. I would have loads of friends and the perfect girlfriend too. That's when I realized what I had to do. Somehow, I had to get back in that room and steal the money. The next day at school, I bumped into Beth. "Hi, Beth," I said. "How was your weekend?" Beth looked at me weirdly. "Just the same as every weekend," she said, "stuck at home, bored." I guess she just hadn't liked having to go away with her parents. Or maybe she was just an annoying little sister. Well, that's what Laura said anyway. The next few days, all I could think about was how I was going to get back into Laura's house. I began to come up with a plan, but I couldn't afford to make any mistakes. I had to take my time. The next time I met Laura, we went to the cinema. I had been looking forward to seeing this movie for ages. I bought the tickets and gave them to Laura. "You go sit down and I'll grab us some popcorn," I said. I went and got us the popcorn and some drinks. As I walked into the cinema, I saw Laura standing over someone, screaming, "Get out of my seat! Are you stupid or something? Can't you read the number on your ticket?" What was going on? Why was Laura being so rude? "It's okay, Laura, we can sit here," I said, pulling her away. She was so angry. "No, that's my seat and I want to sit in it," she shouted at me. The girl got out of Laura's seat and we sat down. "Why are you so weak?" Laura spat at me. The rest of the evening was ruined. All I could think about was how mean she was. I started to wonder about her. Maybe she did know what Mike and Julie were really like. Maybe she was just as bad as them. Things just got worse from then on. I hated the way she spoke to people. She was rude to waitresses and pretty much everyone else. I wanted to finish with her, but I knew I had to keep dating her to be able to get to the money. Eventually, the time came. I couldn't put up with her anymore. After school, I went home, grabbed the biggest bag I could find, and set off to Laura's house. When I got there, I called her phone. "Laura, it's Neil. I'm outside your house. Can I come in?" I asked. It's not a good time," Laura said. "It won't take 5 minutes," I said. "I've left my wallet in your lounge. I just need to grab it." "It's not a good time," Laura shouted and slammed down the phone. I went to the front door, but it was locked. I walked around to the back of the house. The kitchen window was open, so I climbed in. I looked around me, but I couldn't hear or see anyone. This was my chance. I ran quickly into the lounge and through the door on the other side of the room. I pushed the bolts of the puzzle and the red button popped up. I pushed it and heard the familiar sliding of the wall. I turned around ready to dash in and grab the money. The room was bare. What was going on? Where had all the money gone? Suddenly, I heard a noise in the hallway. I ran out of the room, and as I got to the hallway, I saw Laura running out of the front door. "Laura!" I shouted. She turned to look at me, and as she did, she tripped over the step. As she fell to the floor, the bag she was carrying split open, and thousands of $100 bills came pouring out. "Laura, what are you doing with all that money?" I asked. She just laughed at me. "Are you stupid? You just don't get it at all. Do you honestly think I would go out with you? I just knew your curiosity would work out how to get into the room," she shouted. "But why do you want to steal your parents' money?" I asked. "This isn't my house, and it's not my parents' house. It belongs to a millionaire who died with no relatives to leave it to. Mike and Julie told me all about it. Julie used to work for him as a cleaner. She knew he had money hidden away in that room. We just needed someone to work out the puzzle and find out how to get into the room," she answered. "So that's where I came in," I said. "When I met you the first day at school, I couldn't believe my luck," she said. "You asked so many questions. You were so inquisitive. I knew you wouldn't be able to resist trying to get into that room." I felt so many feelings at once. For starters, I was hurt that Laura had used me. Then again, I was also planning on stealing that money. Secondly, I was now confused as to what I should do next. These are my options. Number 1, I can blackmail Laura into sharing the money with me. That way, I will still be quite rich. Or, number 2, I can go to the police and tell them everything. Laura will go to prison, but I will have nothing. Help me out, viewers. What would you do? Leave your answer in the comments below.